This episode of the Justin Robert Young podcast is brought to you by over 238 people who are literally better than Jesus Christ. Wink. Fucking JuRY show. Oh, the fucking JuRY show. Oh, talking about some bullshit right now. Oh, you're about to listen to the sound. Everybody was talking bullshit, comparing people to Jesus Christ. Some think it was a little bit tasteless, but he did it with ham-fisted anti-timing, so it was kind of awkward, and people were like, why are you comparing us to Jesus? Is that being sarcastic? And I'm kind of like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not like a Christian, so I don't really have that much of a relationship with Jesus, but Jesus didn't subscribe to my Patreon, so I'm kind of like, I mean, really, like, by definition, y'all are better than Jesus to me. Hi, everybody. That's how we begin the show this week. My name is Justin Robert Young. This is the JuRY podcast. What we do here on this show is we talk, and by we, I mean me. It's the royal we. I speak for you. I speak for me. I speak for those who do not have single mic podcasts. Please come lay with me. Now it just, man, it goes fine line between trying to quote a Bible verse and being extraordinarily creepy. On this version of the show, man, do we got a smorgasbord of topics for you. I am going to discuss some hilarious missed signals that I blew through. I'm the man that is talking to you right now. I have had people tell me, Justin, you are somebody who has confidence. Now, I never in my life have considered myself a confident person. And it's only, through, I guess, I don't know. That's a whole nother story. But I certainly was not a confident person in high school at all. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to illustrate for you exactly how not confident I was. We got a new segment called It's a Bad Look. It's just a bad look. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's just a bad look. And then I'm going to talk more about Mel Brooks because it's my fucking podcast and I get to do what I want. And Mel Brooks is a deity who walks among us. He's the best. He's got a new special that I watched this week, and I want to talk about how awesome it is. But we start the episode by discussing something slightly more serious. The shootings in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. A man whose name that I did not care to memorize murdered 3 people. He is white. They were Muslim. This has raised a lot of very, very legitimate concerns about whether or not it was a hate crime. Those are not the concerns that I'm going to bring up right now. There are more intelligent people having that conversation, and I don't want it to follow me butchering a on-the-spot improv parody of Everyone Was Kung Fu Fighting. Instead, I will discuss two things. The first, after reading about this story, I found out that this guy was somebody who fancied himself a watchdog for his community, a collegiate community next to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill that often featured kids staying up, and I mean by kids, I mean college-age kids, staying up late at night, fucking in their cars in the parking lot, and doing all sorts of other stuff. He was very concerned about keeping law and order in his apartment complex. I think we're at the point that we can say, and this is not, I don't want to talk about these specific instances. This dude, by all accounts, allegedly murdered 3 people. I'm not drawing any equivalencies here, but let's just also remember that we had the George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin thing. Why was George Zimmerman out there with a gun in the rain trying to corral random people in his neighborhood? Because he fancied himself a neighborhood watchman. If you have appointed yourself sheriff of your little slice of the world, and you don't seem to be well liked by those around you, I believe we are looking at a character flaw. This is not a good look. And that's not the segment. We have another whole segment where we're going to do another one of these. But this is just a bad idea. And it's to the point where I kind of feel like if I were in a situation where somebody had appointed themselves the sheriff of my apartment building, and I didn't seem to think that they were doing a great job at preserving a better life experience for me, and was rather on a power trip and wanted to yell about kids fucking in their cars or parking in the wrong spots or calling tow trucks because he didn't recognize the cars, I believe this might be a character trait. I believe this might be a troubling character trait. So I have really nothing to say about it other than that. I just think at this point, I would get very weirded out if somebody had the same type of behavior that I read about there in my life. I feel like I would look at it in a negative way. So that's the first part I want to talk about. Here's the second and more troubling. Soon as this thing goes down, everybody goes to this dude's Facebook. Everybody looks at his Facebook likes and they make judgments. Now, in this case, what we have is somebody for whom many of this demographic, people who would listen to this podcast, might share similar interests. People like Neil deGrasse Tyson. Atheist causes, communities that I am very, very familiar with, if not, would consider myself a member of. And it's not because of that I'm going to say what I say next. Because I feel like my position on this has been very, very clear for a long time. I think it's bullshit when we look back at what these guys are into and then we say we assign value on it, you know? Because I think it's very often a conversation about other narratives that we want to have and we believe we now have the right to talk about with increased authority because a tragedy has happened and we can try to assign it. So this guy's a murderer. Let's assume that he is found guilty in a court of law of murdering those 3 people. Is it an indictment of the atheist community? I don't think so. But at the same time, a lot of the people that I would say are not any more or less terrorists because they like the same things that this guy liked I've also seen out here in these streets pointing fingers when they try to draw correlations for things that are maybe not what they like. You know, to say, well, if they are religious, you know, does that mean that religious people are more likely to murder somebody? I don't think so. I remember when the dude shot Senator Giffords in the head. There was a lot of people on websites that I tremendously respect that were tripping over themselves to connect that shooter to a thing that went out where I think Sarah Palin had linked to it on our Facebook page, where they had like the districts they wanted to target, and they were like target sites, like rifle target sites. And Gabrielle Giffords was one of those areas that they wanted to target, that they thought that they could take in the elections. But everybody wanted to try and find, you know, and not everybody, but some people wanted to try to find a way that we could link this kid, who is by all accounts mentally disturbed, and by the way, as it turned out, politically was liberal, wanted to find a way to link it to this image and to this idea and to gun rights people. Now, I'm not saying you can't have very, very strong opinions. I'm not saying that you can even not think that, you know, lack of gun legislation causes gun violence. That's fine. Do that. But make it about those arguments. This idea that somebody does something terrible and then we can dissect their life and believe that we can find and extrapolate by that evidence that the things that they like are the problem and not the people who did it is problematic to me. And this, again, is non-political. This is across the board. I see this happen. This knows no agenda. It is just how some people want to make their point. And I think it's bad. I think it harms your argument. I think people who, you know, were out there screaming, religion's a virus, you know, now look bad when somebody fucking who is about that life goes out and murders 3 Muslim people. That's a bad look. But I don't think correlation equals causation in this case. And I think we could all be served by keeping these discussions about the general topics and not looking for murderers to provide clarification for them. And just to show you that I am really and truly practicing what I preach, let's go ahead and rewind to a few months ago. The lunatic that killed those people in Santa Barbara. He was somebody who was a member of, at one time, the pickup artist community, men's rights activist community. Now, I got complex feelings about the pickup artist community, and I think I talked about that when this event happened on the JuRY podcast. But the men's rights activist community, I'm not a gigantic fan of. They're just really not where I am ideologically seated, and it's a little bit of a personal thing because a lot of those boards went really, really hard on Ashley when she would talk about gender stuff. And, you know, listen, that's somewhere, you know, I get my Irish up a little bit about shit like that when people go after people that I love. So, I don't think the fact that he had those opinions made him a murderer. And I want to separate that from my ideological perspective, that some of these ideas can reinforce a culture that is problematic to fucking women. And on some level, did that play a part in what that dude did when he shot those people and who he was going after? Yeah, I think it did. But it ain't about the fact that he liked a certain message board. And it's not about the fact that he liked a certain writer. And it's not about the fact that he found any kind of community or solace in the company of other people. Because I'm pretty sure that the vast majority, and by that I mean 99.9 of those people, are law-abiding, beautiful human beings that I happen to disagree with. Because guess what, ladies and germs? This is your old pal Justin Robert Young telling you that that is the world. That's who you're dealing with. 99.9% of them are law-abiding, beautiful human beings that you happen to disagree with. And that's beautiful. That's a great world. That means that inherently, I do believe people are good. And inherently, people want to do well by each other. And we have a cornucopia of ideas that we can choose from. We have a plethora of beautiful conversations that we can have where we come in on either sides of the aisle. If you strive to live in a world where all your friends think the exact same way as you, I'm sorry, homeboy, that sounds boring as shit to me. I can't live that. I can't. It seems so snorefest, man. So we got what we got. You know, we have an amazing place that we can call home. And yet, every once in a while, some wild asshole decides to ruin shit, and that's what happened there in Chapel Hill. So my condolences to those who have passed away. And again, if you want actual real talk about some of the racial politics and that, I'm sure there's a million other places that are having really, really great conversations. And I hope I did my best in not sullying them by running my big fat mouth. We got music for you today. A man that I know in the chat room as Druggy Fresh. You will also know him as at DJ NORFAR. You can find him NORFAR on SoundCloud. Made some music, and I'm gonna play it between the breaks. We got all sorts of crazy shit coming up, including some embarrassing high school stories. My new segment, It's a Bad Look, and Mel Brooks talk. Stay tuned. JuRY's on right now. Again, that is DJ NORFAR. But I call him Druggy Fresh. And I'm going to call him Druggy Fresh because I goddamn want to, and it's my right. You can go ahead and find him on SoundCloud. He's awesome. I really like him, and I like his shit. He'll be on Snapchat, and he'll be listening to stuff or making stuff, and I dig it. So big shout out. If you want to send me your stuff that I can play during the show, go ahead and do it. JustinRobertYoung@gmail.com. That is JustinRobertYoung@gmail.com. Put JuRY in the subject line, JuRY. I was trying to think, man. I'm like, fuck. We have had such heavy episodes lately. Oh, everything's so serious, It feels like it's been forever since we've done like hobos and wizards, crazy shit. So I want to do something funny, and I remembered this really embarrassing thing in high school. So a little background for me. I moved around a lot when I was a kid. I never really went to one school for more than a few years at a time, like 1 or 2 years, and then I'd wind up moving. Even when I moved to South Florida, like I did 3 years at an elementary school, 2 years at one middle school, 1 year at another middle school, and then I finally went to high school in one place for 4 years. South Plantation High School. Paladin Pride represent. Class of '01. But I'm going to bring you back, man. Let's go back. Way back. Back into time. 9th grade. South Plantation High School. The man who stands in front of you, imagine him skinnier, oilier skin. Acne is on the downward trend. Really, the acne kind of exploded in middle school. Still an acne problem, but we're getting better. Getting better all the time. The acne. Gangly physique. Not somebody who you would consider classically handsome. And that is certainly how I thought of myself. And let me preface this story by saying that there's a reason why I cotton to a certain kind of audience. If you are out here listening to me and you are mystified by and don't feel like you have a handle on how to approach women, then, I'm your hookup. Holler if you hear me. This is my groove. This is something that I don't feel like I ever really got a handle of. I never really got a handle on like, oh, okay, this is just how you generally like introduce yourself as a suave potential romantic interest to a woman. Like, I feel like right up until, even I met Ashley, the woman who I'm going to marry later this year, like my go-to strategy with any romantic relationship was to just like become friends with somebody and then kind of ask intermediary friends whether or not they were interested in me, or somebody would just come out and tell me, hey, Justin, this person's interested in you. And, even looking back on it, I kind of feel like it's going to fucking fade to black and white. I'm going to look directly into the A camera and say, there's got to be a better way. And I'm sure there was. I had friends that, had a modicum of game, were able to just, say like, hey, what's up, lady? You want to go on a date? Never had it. Never had it. Now, I eventually got what I lacked in high school and what this story is about, which is any kind of idea, any sense that a girl is interested in me. I was tone deaf, my friends. Absolutely and totally tone deaf. How tone deaf, you might ask? Well, I'm really, really glad you did, because I have a story to illustrate it. 9th grade English class. I sat next to a girl who shall remain nameless because this story's kind of embarrassing for her as well. She's a bit of a goth. Mind you, this is 1997, 9th grade. She's got the black lipstick, fishnet, stockings, long flowing black dresses. She was a huge fan of Typo Negative. Very pretty girl, by the way. Extraordinarily pretty. Very goth. All of a sudden, now I don't know anybody in this school. I'm new to the school. I didn't go to middle school with any of these kids. I think there's one kid that I also went to middle school with, but we didn't really run in the same circles. So all of a sudden, this lady, let's call her for the sake of the story, nice lady, hands me a note. The note is a handwritten short story. A handwritten short story about a young girl who summons a demon from the nether realm and then has sex with it. Now, I have no idea how to take this. But like me now, I don't want to shame somebody into saying like, well, that's fucking weird. You know, I mean, it seems nice. It was well written. Again, I have no friends. So I'm like, all right, beggars can't be choosers. And so effectively, my reaction to her is like, yeah, okay. Like, oh, all right, nice lady. That's certainly a thing you just did. All right. Flash forward, week after. All of a sudden, she slides me another note. This one is about another demon summoned by a young girl. This one is a little bit more graphic. She, in the intervening week in our English class, it had certainly served her well because her adverb game was stronger. It was growing. It was a very sordid tale. This is also a good time to let you know that this is 9th grade. Hormones are surging, and we are in a physical period I would like to call the boner factory. Boners happening constantly, literally for any and all reasons. Walking down the hall, boner time. In the morning, boner time. Right after lunch, boner. How about a little tea time boner, huh? For whatever reason, boners during Spanish class. Because, god damn it, if that ain't a language of absolute hormonal lust, I don't know what is. Roll the R's for boner. Boners during Spanish class. So this time, she writes me the note. It's another short story, and it's again about demon sex. This happens 3 more times. And if you were looking for some sort of big finish to this story, I hate to disappoint you, it ain't gonna happen. The big finish to the story is that your boy, Justin Robert Young, had no clue that this was in any way a signal that she would like to sleep with me. Or have any kind of relationship at all. Like, it makes me think that, like, right now, if I had somebody write me erotic demon sex stories, I would feel like it was like cheating on Ashley if I didn't bring them to her immediately. In fact, Ashley's just sitting there. Ashley, the mic's plugged in. Go ahead, go over to the mic. If I got demon sex stories written to me by somebody that I knew, would you be pissed off if I didn't tell you that I had received them?
I would. I'd want to read them. Like, that's really fascinating to me. And I wouldn't be pissed though.
Well, no,
I'd be confused.
Well, I guess I'm only saying that to illustrate that it would be looked at as somebody trying to make it was an obvious declaration of some kind of affection, right?
Yeah.
Like nobody just writes friends erotic fiction.
I mean, it'd be nice.
I mean, but like seriously though. Like if somebody just randomly wrote you erotic fiction.
Oh, I'd be creeped out like crazy.
Well, I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to be creeped out, but like it would be a symbol of something, you know? All right. It's Ashley, everybody. Go ahead. At Healthy Addict on Twitter. Yay. I want your stories. I want guys, homeboys, friends. Because I think, there are some times where I'm looking for just the ladies. This time I'm looking for just the guys. I want you guys to let me know when, in hindsight, you totally blew a fucking signal. This wasn't even a signal, by the way. This was a goddamn neon fucking road sign. I don't even know if they make road signs out of neon. It would be so unique that you'd be like, holy shit, I totally noticed that as being something out of the ordinary. So go ahead. Send me your missed signals, and we'll read them on the podcast next week. We got a new segment. It's super short. It's called It's a Bad Look, and it is next. It is time for America's new favorite radio bit. It's a bad look. It's a Bad Look brings you the kind of clarity that you have always been looking for. Whether or not you think that this pattern of behavior is bad, I'm letting you know that the rest of America and the world at large is clear that that look is indeed not what it should be. If you loudly protest how unnecessarily complicated the pronouns and terminology for transsexuals are, and yet correct somebody on the difference between Salacious Crumb and Bib Fortuna, my friend, that's a bad look. Send your It's a Bad Looks to justinrobertyoung@gmail.com. So I am a huge fan of Mel Brooks. I love Mel Brooks movies. I love Mel Brooks' comedy. I think he is a genius. I think he is an entertainment machine. Blazing Saddles is, in my opinion, the best comedy of all time. Not because it's necessarily the funniest comedy ever, because I think my favorite comedy is the stuff that takes real balls. Absolute. Titanic nuts. And I think, to do a script about, springtime for Hitler in Germany while Holocaust survivors are still out there in the streets is pretty ballsy. But then to do a movie that is as incendiary a racial commentary as Blazing Saddles is almost more daring. Mel Brooks has a brand new special on HBO. He's telling stories. He's singing songs. He's doing shtick. It's amazing. If you care about performance and you care about comedy, it's a must watch. It reminds me of, I got this box set of Frank Sinatra recordings. They were all from Las Vegas. 4 different performances, all roughly 10 to 15 years apart. So there's one in like early 60s, like Rat Pack era. There's one in like the late 60s, mid 70s, and then one in the 80s. Of all the 4 of them, the 80s one is my favorite. Because they're all great, but the 80s one is where he's obviously losing some steam off his fastball. He can't hit the notes the same way. But if you listen to all 4 of them together, you notice that his shows kind of had certain rhythms. He would, lead on certain songs to kind of go to intermission with, and he would, punctuate things. He knew where his big, he hit the big note to get the crowd going. He was an exceptional performer. But he can't rely on what he used to in the 80s. He just doesn't have the vocal capacity for it. But he knows he's Frank Sinatra, and he can just make little jokes here and there. So it's like, where he used to just be able to just go like, and like have like a big note that would fucking like just level everybody in the room. Now he would like fake that he was doing the big note and then like make a joke to the band leader. And so everybody laughs. It was just such an amazing lesson in like, there's always a way around. Identify what you're good at. And even if, you can't do everything the right way, just twist it a little bit. Take it 5% different and make that show the best show possible. Now, Mel Brooks is kind of the same lesson, but also opposite. Mel Brooks is like 88. Dude's almost 90 years old. And he not only, no one would begrudge him if he went out and did any kind of special. He could go out on the stage and just tell stories. We'd love it. He could go out on stage and just do Q&A, and we would love it. He could go out on stage and just do his fucking super hacky Borscht Belt fucking shtick, and we would love it. It's fine. He's 88 years old. He's a national treasure. We just kind of want to see him out there. But yet, he does all of those things and sings songs. And they're not bad. Like, Mel Brooks was always known as a guy who could sing, but not necessarily a singer. You know, he never released an album or anything. He sang in his own movies, but that was pretty much it. But that motherfucker sings the goddamn Blazing Saddles theme, which, he never fucking sang. He was this big voice Western guy, like, he rode a blazing saddle. Like, he sings that, and it's really good. It's fucking awesome, and it's so fun. But he peppers in everything else that we want. Like, if he just wants to talk about how he wrote Blazing Saddles with Richard Pryor, he's got a fun little Richard Pryor thing. He opens up the whole show with a real fucking, like, super shticky, Borscht Belt thing. I used to date a girl that was so skinny. How skinny was she? I took her out to dinner and the maitre d' says, "Can I check your umbrella?" Like, that's the fucking joke he uses. Which is like, I don't even feel bad repeating it to you because it's like such a fucking like shticky joke. You need to watch it. It's just so good. I don't even know what it's called. It's Mel Brooks. It's on HBO. It's on HBO Go. I'll give you guys all my mom's HBO Go login at some point, and we can all watch it together, and it'll be a fun time. Again, it is NORFAIR on SoundCloud. We'll be right back with your letters. It's time for mail. If you'd like to send me email, justinrobertyoung@gmail.com. That is justinrobertyoung@gmail.com. Our mail theme comes to us from Neshcom, who said I could take shit from his website, so I'm going to do it. First email comes in from John. So the reason I started crafting this electronic mail was in response to a DT&S discussion on Friday's show where you were talking about how we hear a bit of a story and form opinion based on those quote-unquote facts, more likely factoids, rather than realize how much deeper the rabbit hole goes. Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, number 500, which I just finished, came up with the quote-unquote YouTube fallacy, described as, I don't know anything and neither do you, specifically when arguing about usually a technical or complicated topic of which neither person is an expert. Thought you'd appreciate the name. I love the name. YouTube fallacy is a great name. But I don't want to. The only thing I don't like about it is I don't want to deride anybody who learns shit on YouTube. There's plenty to fucking really learn on YouTube. I'm just saying, like, I don't know, man. Let's all just fucking stop white knuckling on fucking arguments. Like, let's just, I don't know, talk to each other like human beings for like once. Phil. So yesterday we were driving around and my wife was running down the nominations for the Grammys and I was kvetching about how terrible music has become, and to the part of your point, rock music is dead. I suggested we go look at the nominees from 1992, my senior year at high school and the year I associate with, as will always be the case, some music I really love. Nirvana, Morrissey, Pixies, U2, REM. So we pulled the 1992 Grammys. I gotta pause the music just so we can all see. 1992. This guy's favorite fucking bands are Nirvana, Morrissey, Pixies, U2, and R.E.M. These are bands who are in the prime of their powers at that point. The 1992 Grammy nominees for Best Album were Michael Bolton, Natalie Cole, Bonnie Raitt. What? They went back to 1990. Michael Bolton, Bonnie Raitt, Milli Vanilli. What? There's a pattern here. Okay, this has to stop. 1984, the greatest year in the history of pop culture. This was, again, 1984. Michael Jackson, The Police, Culture Club. Flashdance won a bunch of stuff, too. But thank you, 1984, for not being so terrible with the Grammys. He continues. I guess the Grammys are always terrible. I need to quit being such a grouchy old man, but today's pop is crap, just like ours. One day, my kids will seek refuge in the 2015 Grammys, and I can only hope that they are fleeing from guitar rock revival led by robots who indeed rock. Herbie Hancock's Rocket also won in 1984, so there is precedent. Thank you so much for sending that in. That was Phil who wrote that. The Grammys have always sucked. They've always just sucked major ass. And we have some dirty middle school corner. This one comes in from Liam in England. The only dirty shanty I can remember is from middle school is English Country Garden. Here's what I remember. What do you do when you need to go poo in an English country garden? Pull down your pants and poison the ants in an English country garden. He says I'm sure there's other crass verses, but that's all that he can remember. Again, we've gotten so many good dirty middle school songs. Send me your dirty middle school songs at justinrobertyoung@gmail.com. JuRY in the subject line. Meanwhile, you can find this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Downcast, and wherever you procure fine podcasts. Email me, justinrobertyoung@gmail.com. That is JURY in the subject line. Twitter and Instagram is Justin R. Young. Of course, you can always hashtag join the conversation at diamondclub.reddit.com. And of course, the Patreon. You guys have unlocked the Celebrity Jizz Impression mini album. I'm recording it this week, and it'll be out to you this week. We are at 409. We're going to pause this, because I'm just saying, if we get... It might not be next week, because I think we might have a recorded episode next week so I can do the wrestling show. But if we get to 420, just saying, maybe there's an episode of the show where I don't think I've ever done the JuRY show. Maybe a little bit. All right, everybody, go ahead and send me those emails. And, of course, all the patrons, thank you so much. You guys are the absolute best. I don't know. I could gush. It's been a while since I've just, totally stopped the show and dropped my to my knees and thanked all of you personally. But please know that that's all I ever think about. But, ladies and gentlemen, should you find yourself getting erotic demon fiction from somebody that you believe might have your most erotic life at heart? Predictions? Oh man, that fell apart. If you are missing your signals by erotic demon fiction, if you are arguing with people on Facebook about what murderers liked on Facebook, if you are at the end of your rope and you don't believe that you can go further, then remember this, my friends, that your friend Justin Robert Young is here for you, and I want you to know that I am requesting you, please don't stay.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.